Sometimes you've done something for so many years that you forget the danger. You've never had any problems, so you keep doing it the way it's always been done. Sometimes the way it's always been done is not enough to prevent tragedy.
G'day. You may have seen that announcement before on TV. If not, it may give you an idea of how quickly a normal day at work can turn into a nightmare if the proper precautions aren't taken. Unfortunately, many of us see the farms upon which we work as familiar places, places that can easily be taken for granted. We do the same sort of jobs day after day, year after year, without a problem. But the reality is that in Australia, someone is killed as a result of a farm accident every 2 days. And many other major injuries occur on farm workplaces just like this one. Yeah, farming is a hazardous industry, but that shouldn't mean that we accept accidents as a normal part of the job. The really sad fact is that most of these tragedies could have been avoided had safety been properly managed. Welcome to our farm. We hope you find your work here interesting and rewarding, and grow to share our sense of pride in how we manage the resources of our farm business, of which you are by far the most valuable. Make no mistake, your safety takes priority over everything else we do. You may not be aware, but it's actually the law that I and every other farm owner and manager provide a safe working environment for you. If we don't, we can be penalised with fines or even go to jail. We want you to understand the commitment that we as managers of this workplace have made to ensure your health and safety and the health and safety of all others who enter this workplace. But we need your help in order to do this. It's important that you understand your responsibilities in occupational health and safety. If for whatever reason you feel you can't undertake a certain task safely, don't do it. Talk to your manager or supervisor. Remember that your safety is as much your responsibility as it is ours. Only by working together can we really achieve our goals. Any business, if it's to be run in an orderly manner, must have rules and guidelines. Our farm is no exception. So whether you're new to the job or a bit of an old hand, I'd ask you now to take 10 minutes to have a look at some safety issues that do affect you and your workplace. Some of it you may know, some of it you may think you know, but one day what you see here, quite literally, could save your life. So, where do we start? Probably how we start every day, getting dressed. Pretty easy, you reckon? Yeah, I guess so, but there are still some rules which should be followed. Your clothing needs to be appropriate for the work you're doing. I'm not just talking comfortable, although that's important too. Wear sturdy work boots with non-slip soles. Make sure that overalls or trousers are tough and not ripped at all. And the same with shirts. Button up at the wrist, tuck in at the waist. If you have long hair, make sure it's tied back and out of the way, and don't wear jewellery that could be entangled in machinery. It's all pretty obvious, right? But tell that to the young farmhand in Queensland who was pulled into an auger hopper by his shirt tail. He probably thought it was obvious too, before he woke up in hospital with one leg missing and 80 stitches sewing his flesh back onto his hip. Ignoring the obvious is a recipe for disaster. Have a routine, make sure you stick to it. Hygiene is another area that is easily forgotten in the hustle and bustle of a farm day, especially during the busy times when the pressure is really on. But when you're dealing with animals and pesticides, you must understand there are very real possibilities of contamination and infection. Once again, just have a routine. Wash your hands regularly after work and before eating or smoking. Keep your work clothes clean, washing them daily if dealing with pesticides. And keep your workplace clear of rubbish and food scraps. And if you deal with animals and soil, make sure your tetanus shots are up to date. For hazardous tasks, always make sure you have the correct protective equipment and that it's clean and in good order. Earmuffs or plugs where noise is a problem. For handling pesticides, protective gloves, face shield and or respirator. For welding jobs, goggles or welding helmet and protective clothing. And dust masks for work in silos and other potentially hazardous environments. Now, all this equipment should be available for you when required. If it's damaged or not available, or even if you're not exactly sure how to use it, come and talk to us. I can assure you, as farm managers, we're concerned as much about your safety as you are. But sometimes, with so many things going on, we may not necessarily know, for instance, that the dust mask has a small hole in it, or the welding helmet lens is cracked, or any other essential pieces of equipment are damaged. So be sure to report broken or damaged safety gear. When working outside, make sure you always wear a broad brim hat and even sunscreen. It may take longer, but skin cancer can kill you just as surely as a machinery accident. And if you don't wear a hat and dab on this stuff, you're sure to regret it later in life. If you're riding a bike, once again, observe basic safety rules. Tough clothing, helmet, gloves and boots. Maintain the bike, read the manual and safety instructions, don't speed. And most of all, don't carry passengers on ATVs. That large seat has been designed for rider movement, not an extra person. These are the sort of rules that most of us both know and observe. But the danger may come at the end of the day when you've just got to quickly duck up to the back paddock and your helmet is in the shed. And you think, oh, she'll be right, I can't be bothered. Do you know how many people wake up in hospital and the last thing they said was, oh, she'll be right, I can't be bothered. Be bothered. You can die just as easily riding 50 metres as you can riding 50 kilometres. Remember, safety takes priority. Did you know that horses, like farm bikes, are a significant contributor to serious injury and hospitalisation for young people on farms? Once again, wear the right gear. Tough riding clothes, proper riding boots and a helmet. And most importantly, always check the condition and safety of the riding gear, as damage and wear may be the difference between suffering a serious injury and avoiding an accident altogether. Hi, Leash. G'day, Scout. Again, if you're not sure, ask. Look after your horse, look after your riding gear, and you'll be looking after yourself. Packed lunch. What do we got? Ham and cheese sandwiches and some fresh water to wash it down. Beautiful. Farms are big places. Some are really big places. A little while back in Western Australia, two young blokes went out to fix a fence in a remote part of a large cattle station. Their vehicle broke down, their radio failed, and many days later their bodies were found. Before you set out for a day's work, make sure you've got more than adequate water and keep well hydrated. Check with your manager or supervisor about dams and water holes because many of them will be contaminated and not suitable for human drinking. Don't get caught. Be sensible. You make sure there's fuel for the tractor, make sure there's fuel for yourself as well. There are many different types of farm chemicals, pesticides and other hazardous substances in current use around Australia. Only persons authorised by management are allowed access to the farm chemicals. Before using any of them, you must read the label carefully or at least have it clearly explained to you. The label provides detailed instructions for mixing and application. If you can't understand any of the instructions, always ask your supervisor or manager. Always make sure that you're properly clothed to avoid skin contact with the chemicals, and wear the personal protective equipment provided. If there isn't a tap nearby, at least 20 litres of clean water should be carried with you when applying chemicals for cleaning up in the event of an accidental spill. Every registered farm chemical has what's called a Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. Always ask for them when you purchase chemicals. These sheets are really important and give more details about specific safety risks and the necessary precautions that must be taken to avoid poisoning yourself, others and the environment. Also, the MSDS will tell you about safe chemical storage and what to do in the event of an emergency like a chemical spill or poisoning. Know what chemicals are used on your farm and where to access the MSDSs. When you've finished, farm chemicals must be securely locked away. And the information must be recorded on the farm chemical register. Once again, your supervisor or manager will explain exactly how to do this. Quite simply, they don't put this warning on the label for nothing. Always take the time to familiarise yourself with the chemicals before you start using them. The simple fact is that most machinery accidents happen because of inadequate or non-existent guarding. As we talked about earlier, it's sometimes easy to think that we've never had an accident in the past, why fit a guard now? But it really does only take one time. Here's a typical example. If you're clearing out a baler like this one, you should have a guard here. If you haven't, you could end up a statistic. Before starting any machine, check its basic mechanical necessities. Fuel, oil, water, transmission, brakes, tyres if necessary, and its safety features. If a guard has been removed in order to perform maintenance or to clear a blockage like this one, make sure that it is properly refitted before the machine is turned on again. If there are any exposed moving machine parts, alert your supervisor or manager to this immediately so that suitable guarding can be arranged. Or, if a guard is bent or damaged, once again, let us know. Lastly, if you have to leave a machine while the engine is still running, make sure that the working equipment is disengaged and the machine is in park. Tractors, the farm workhorse. Did you know that tractors are responsible for more deaths on farms than any other piece of machinery? Tractors can roll over in less than a third of a second. And you should never drive a tractor without an approved rollover protective structure fitted to it. You might have heard of these, simply referred to as a ROPS. Next to rollovers, tractor runovers are a major cause of farm fatalities. So here are a few more important tractor safety rules that you'll be expected to follow. Never try and get on or off a tractor while it is still moving. Always face the tractor when mounting and dismounting and use the handrail. Children must never ride on tractors, and you should never start a tractor before you've checked that all bystanders, especially children, are well clear. As a rule, passengers should not be carried on tractors unless that tractor has an approved passenger seat. As always, if you're not sure, check with your manager or supervisor. Unguarded power takeoff shafts, or PTOs, have resulted in arm and leg amputations and other horrific injuries. Don't risk it. If there isn't a PTO guard like this one, or if it's damaged, report it immediately. Animals must never be taken for granted. They're unpredictable and for the most part outweigh and are stronger than the people who are handling them. Bulls, cows, rams, sheep, horses, even pigs are potentially dangerous animals. Always check the condition of the yards and handling equipment before commencing any task, and especially be aware in wet areas where a loss of footing can be potentially tragic. When dealing with livestock, learn to identify their behavioural characteristics, as this will provide a guide to how they may react. The majority of incidents that involve people getting hurt from livestock are predominantly caused by the animal feeling threatened and doing what its instincts tell it to do. Understanding animal behaviour and using that to your advantage is essential if you're going to make a good stock person. Stock handling practices employed on this farm are based on managing safety for the workers and for the livestock. You'll be given instructions from your supervisor, and if you don't know, ask. Be prepared. It's a famous motto, and it certainly applies to the farm. Always let somebody know where you're going to be, know where the first aid kits are located, and make sure you know where the emergency telephone numbers are listed. If you have any medical conditions or allergies, don't keep it a secret, let us know about it. We can't help in an emergency if we don't know the facts. Always think ahead. If you ever feel that you don't have the experience to undertake a job safely, please advise the supervisor or manager and don't go ahead with the job. I can't say this enough. Your safety takes priority. Managing safety is a shared responsibility. And as managers, we're expected to provide you with a safe place to work, and we're committed to doing that. However, we can't do it without your cooperation, and you are expected to advise management of any safety hazard or problem that you come across. The same applies to visitors and contractors. Be aware of any hazard which may endanger them, and be especially aware of children. Quite simply, they're not permitted on tractors or other farm machinery and are not allowed to enter the yards when animals are being handled. Keep an eye out for them and look after them. Always remember that the safety of the people on this farm take precedence over all other considerations, and that rule is doubled when we're under pressure. After watching this film, you'll be given an induction information guide which covers the sort of areas which we've discussed today. However, you'll need to go through it with your farm manager or supervisor to be clear on what special arrangements are in place for safety on your farm workplace. I strongly advise you to read it and heed it. And then you're ready for work. Think safe, work safe, farm safe.